Hi friends, Pastor Terry here. We are Dalhousie Church and welcome to Overtime. A bit of content that we didn't have time to talk about or wasn't appropriate maybe even to talk about in the midst of our worship service, but which maybe is helpful to you. We had 3 periods of play, 3 points to the sermon, and now here we are in overtime. Some of the best hockey gets played in overtime, by the way. Sometimes it's so super exciting. And I don't know if this is going to be that or not, but I want to talk in particular about parenting. We don't get a lot of opportunity, and it's dangerous because different parents, different families have different ways of thinking about parenting, different approaches to child rearing and how we do that. So I want to be delicate and I want to be careful. And really what I'm doing is attempting to bring maybe a little bit of testimony to this. My wife Ann and I have been blessed with 3 children who are now young adults. Our relationship with them now is different than it was when they were little, and honestly, we really struggled. We were trying to be really intentional parents before we were ever pregnant. Anne was going. Some of the families that we most admired were homeschooling families, and so Anne started going to homeschool association meetings, and we built friendships with some of these people and loved them dearly. And then when our children were born, when Catherine and Daniel were born, in particular, we started tipping in that direction, and for the first couple of years, we attempted that. We realized we were in over our heads for I'm sure reasons that were about our limitations, but we described our first 2 kids as extra hot and spicy, and we just needed help. We were drowning, and so we looked at some of the resources that I'm going to talk about here, but we actually went back then to God blessed us to be in a place where there was a kind of a homeschool, private school, kind of hybrid school model that helped us for a few years, and then we moved to Edmonton, and there was a Christian school that was affordable, and we partnered with other Christian parents who were just trying to figure it out together, and God was very kind to us. We love our kids. They're mature, beautiful human beings who are contributing to their worlds in really wonderful ways. We love them. We didn't get there directly, though. There were some really serious bumps along the way. I remember when our kids were younger, asking questions of other parents and what were they working, and some parents came up with these suggestions. One set of friends said, "Oh, there's a book called 1, 2, 3 Magic, and it's been fantastic." And we tried a little bit of that. The idea was that if your child's being disobedient, that's 1, that's 2, that's 3. Okay, now there's consequences, and it gave a little bit of a grace period. Not bad. We had another set of friends who got quite excited about a curriculum called Growing Kids God's Way by Gary and Anne-Marie Ezzo. And so we did that curriculum with them, and we tried it for a very little time, and we quickly realized this is not growing kids God's way. I don't know whose way it is, but God does not parent me like this. There was no grace in it. The idea was that they were expecting first-time obedience from their children, and that you were training them to be responsive to authorities. Well, those aren't bad ideas, but it resulted in almost immediate power struggles, and we were becoming parents that we didn't like, and our children were becoming rebellious and just resisting to the what was frankly an authoritarian approach to parenting, and we let go of that quite quickly. And I just can't endorse that. We came across a book by Kevin Leman eventually called How to Make Children Mind Without Losing Yours. The title itself was fun enough to make you want to read the book. And he introduced an idea that he called natural consequences, that it's how God works with us. It's how we want to work with our children, and we want to allow them to experience enough of the pain of life that they kind of get it. I don't want to do that again. Didn't like the results of it. Back in the day when our kids were kind of hitting, I guess they were probably in the junior high, early high school, junior high range. We were in Edmonton, and back in those days, Edmonton was hosting Breakforth. It was technically a worship conference, but it kind of broadened to a Christian conference, and it was wonderful. Because I lived there, I got involved, and often was given this privilege of hosting the guest speakers, moving them from place to place, and often there were worship guys like Paul Baloche. I got to know Paul. One of the highest privileges and just God moments was when I was when I was assigned to host a guy named Dr. Tim Kimmel. And he was he is a writer on, he's a psychologist and a writer on children and parenting, and we sat together over lunch on this day, and he introduced me to something he was teaching in his workshops, which I ended up taking a couple of his workshops, and I found them to be super helpful. And he calls his curriculum grace-based parenting, which he got my attention with that. And he talks about the need to parent differently during the different stages of our children's growth and development. That how we parent a child in the first 6 years needs to be significantly different than how we parent them in, say, ages 12 through 18. In those first 6 years, he calls that the age of protection, and this would be a time and place where that's how I want to interact with my children. I want to protect them, I want to shelter them. Some people like the language of greenhousing, where you're allowing them in a safe environment to begin to take root and grow. I don't know if he would agree with that statement, that language of greenhousing or not. But between ages of 12 to 18, he would say, kids need to have an awful lot of freedom to make mistakes in those windows. And I tell you, there was nothing more difficult as a parent when we started to try to implement this. And it was 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards. We would often not get it right. But trying to give our kids room to make mistakes while they were still under our roof. While they're still in our home, as opposed to a highly sheltered and directed approach to parenting through junior high and senior high, and then they're off to university with no safety net. And Tim argued that that's often when they crash and burn. And instead, he encouraged, giving them some enough leash that they can kind of hang themselves, so to speak. But you're still there. You're still there to parent them. And what you're doing is you're helping them. You move from being highly directive in the first 6 years to the last 6 years, 12 through 18, to being more of a coach. Inviting, always available to give them advice as they would seek it, but helping them to become decision makers that would think about, well, what would God have to say about this? What do the scriptures tell us? How would I bring this instruction into where I go next? Those years between 6 and 12 then are some kind of transition where you're letting them test the waters, you're giving them increasing responsibilities, perhaps natural consequences, Kevin Lehman, from the decisions that they do make, but they're learning and growing in responsibility. So by the time they get into that last 6 years of 12 to 18, they're beginning to know and understand what it means to have responsibility and to carry responsibility forward. So these have been things that have helped us, and now we're into a new stage of parenting where our kids are young adults, and we're available when they want to talk, but it's important that we not impose ourselves on the decisions that they need to be making as adults, and it continues to be really difficult, friends. Like, there are so many times where you're like, oh, you sure you want to make that decision? Like, that's what you're feeling inside, and biting your tongue because you really don't want to say it. We are still parents. We still love our children. We want to pray for them, and in all stages of life, that would be the consistency. Pray, 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 pray. Hold them before the Father and ask Him to do a work there. And some of you are parents, and there are really painful stories for you, and I grieve with you for that, where your kids have maybe rejected you or rejected faith or maybe both, and those are extremely difficult, extremely painful things, and none of the things that I've talked about guarantee anything. Our children are made in the image of God, and they stand accountable before Him, and they will have to take responsibility for the decisions that they've made in this life. And the responsibility there is to their parent, to their Heavenly Father. With that in mind, then we do the best that we can to coach them in the right direction. We release them into the Lord's hands. They are ultimately His, not ours. We stewarded them for a little while. We never stop being parents. We always look forward to them coming back, to celebrating with them, cheering them on, being their biggest fans in life, and hoping and praying that they continue to walk in a godly way. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he's old will not depart from it. That is not a promise. That is a proverb. It's a general truism, a thing that, all things being considered, has been found by many to be the case. And so we parent humbly before God, desperate for his intervention, and inviting him to teach, train, coach us, and asking that he would give us words of knowledge and understanding as we need them. Lord Jesus, what do you want me to know about this situation with my daughter? What do you want me to know about the situation with my son? Consider writing that down in your journal, and then just quietly sitting before the Lord and writing down the next thing that comes to mind. Would he prompt you? Would he give you something? Lord, what do you want me to know about? Talk to him about the situation and give him opportunity to speak. He guides his children. His Spirit is in those who have called upon his name and are now his. And he continues to parent you. He continues to parent me. He does so with grace. I'm so grateful for his loving compassion and his patience with me. And that's the kind of parent that I've wanted to be, that I want to continue to be as we continue to parent young adults, and maybe someday grandchildren are part of the equation. Well, some of you who have some wisdom on that can coach me when that time comes. Bless you. Thanks for this time. I'm Pastor Terry Lee. We are Dalhousie Church, and this has been Overtime. Bless you, and bye for now.